Father, we pray for the leaders of this country. We also pray for leaders of other countries. We pray for our Navajo Nation President, Vice President, our Speaker, Chief Justice, our Attorney General, the Navajo Nation Council, and all the workers of the Navajo Nation's government. Pray that you be with our police officers, the medical personnel, and may you guide us in ways that we would learn to respectfully work together. Father, we have our elderlies who are in nursing homes. I'm sure they are feeling lonely as they are in their rooms looking out the windows and perhaps looking out towards the door, hoping that their relative might show up for a visit. I ask that you comfort them, Father, and be with those who are incarcerated. Be within their hearts and minds, that they may consider what they've done, and that you may guide them back to society as good people. Father, we know you are our God by the evidence we see about us. We see the beautiful turquoise sky, the clouds that float across there. We see the mountains, the trees, the plants, the herbs, the agricultural plantings that we have. And during this time, Father, we see the corn, the melon, the watermelons, all growing. The alfalfa. We see the animals, Father. We see and listen to the birds as they sing. You have created the different seasons, Father. You also provide your words through the Holy Bible. And when we search the scriptures, you let us know that the days that are coming, we will have experience of troublesome times. You let us know that there will be wars and rumors of wars, famine, pestilence, earthquakes in various places. Father, help us that we may understand your will and be prepared for those days. Ask that you help us to examine ourselves each day, that we may see that we should drain our pride each day, that we should humble ourselves before you and know that you are our God. Father, guide us in your way each day. Thank you for the many blessings of life. These things we pray through your Son, Jesus. Amen. Kache Kro. On the agenda, we have introductions. We'll go to my colleagues. Honorable Vice Chair Walker, are you on the call with us? Honorable Daniels.
Mr. Chair,
Yes. Oh,
thank you very much, Kudo. Kudo, the Chairman Mann, Aaron Kudo, Vice Chair Thomas Walker Jr., Aaron Kudo, the Selika Kudo, the Delegate Freeland, Delegate Stewart, Aaron Delegate Kiel Jr. Yeah, Kudo. Ado Kodo, Kodo Kodo Be Kodo, Mediki Kodo, Chairman Ned, thank you for the prayer Kodo this morning. Ado Kodo should Herman Dan Jr. Ado Ned, can you give it at me? It's a change, this is there. Oh, yeah, Laney. I don't know, I don't know, I should say. As Kahatzo, a national, or I could a entity made of the speed benefit, Kodo, Ado Kodo Panas, Neskia, not if on or jet ho, start ho, Ado in that Apikin, the North Region chapters, or I Panas, Kodo. So I need to have been a Kodo. Mr. Chair, thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Begay.
Chairman, good morning. I'm not sure if you can hear me. But I was at Hanani dance lunky Ani A. That's Ani that's a chair of this chin, A. That's another. Goes class and that, but had the Shaki A. Low Mountain, Touchy Puget, Selanex and with Nazlini, out of mini farm, it only came down to see Chairman.
Thank you. Honorable Stewart. Honorable Stewart. Honorable Freeland. Jay Haribnezin, Homa Sananshna, or Zay Kachi, Bashish Chain, Sana Habitan that should Chado, Tiahani, that she not look at an enshna. A song of chap has been asked, Michigate, Tada, Khan, San Juan, Nena Mizra, Dod Kay, East of the car, Dod, East and Deshki. Yatan on phone, get some of honey, Aroda is not Sanki. Roshi, Sahni, Dinigi, Navajo, Jishin, the staff, said all that, Mr. Coffee.
Good morning, Chair. Members, I've already seen those online. My name is Rodney Tahi. I'm the Legislative Advisor for Resource and Development Committee in Kiani and Central Canada. I'm originally from Steamboat, Arizona. Back to you, Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Mose.
Who's the letter? I think more fanatic, but she doesn't check out the one that's not the one.
Thank you, Mr. Yates from Speaker's office.
Good morning, this is Joaquin Yates, Legislative Staff Assistant for the Office of the Speaker. Good morning, everyone, and yes, thank you for joining us, honorable members of RDC.
Mr. Bielski. Got a. So Resources and Development Committee. I don't know, that's not saying. That's not a. Bielski, yeah. They sell, it's not a mineral department, but this land for it. They are the. That's caution on it's not the. Yeah. Juanita the game.
Good morning. My name is Juanita Gay, and I'm a member of Nina chapter. And the land that we're talking about used to be my mom and my dad's sheep camp. So I'm the citizen. And I have a nephew that has cows on that area, so I wanted to see what was going to happen. And I'm also the president of Nina Club Committee.
Thank you. Ms. Watson.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you for coming here. It's always nice to have an RDC committee here to do a presentation that really means a lot to us, especially during this anti-Atlantic surrender. And it affects most of the chapter officials here, and I'm one of them. And my name is Lojan Watson, and I'm a grassroots community member from here, and I'm like 2 minutes away from here, and I'm also the vice president here. Thank you so much.
Ms. Sundaram.
Yeah,
My name is Cinda Yellowman Benali, and I'm the past president of the Navajo chapter, and I'm retired, but still have my foot in the door because there are many issues that are very, very important to our community, and I still would like to be involved and have my concerns expressed and be made known to the powers that be. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mike Paloma.
Yeah, there's been, and there's Resource Development Committee staff, colleagues, guests, community members, it's been, Mike Paloma, that's the, they talk about it, not that. I love it, I mean, it's not, but it's changed for function, the on the table, that and then simple. Because it's never clear, behind on, not clear, so. Clear up, not so, it's not. Although I think, I'm also the acting director for the Division of Natural Resources. Yeah.
Thank you. From Inter, Andy?
Good morning, Andy Hawkins, Community Relations Senior Manager for Navajo Transition Alliance.
Vivi?
Yeah, I'm Vivi Melendez, I'm the exec, Helium General Manager, trusting Isla, Nashasha Bashi, and Edward Chase,
Inter General Manager, Dragon?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Dragan Buginovic, GM at Navajo.
Tasha?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Latasha Upshaw. I am Executive Mitchell, I'm with you from Fort Defiance. I am the Community Affairs Coordinator for Navajo Transitional Energy Company. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, my name is Sean Smith, originally from Crown Point, and the Sinat Junior Smith, Footage Budget Tree, Quadley, Che, and Rashihi, Chanela. So we're getting INPEG as well, this feels Navajo mine. The environmental manager today and Saturday engineering manager. Good morning, everyone. Travis again, the bottom of the Shihi Chain, I'm the reclamation specialist with the Navajo Nation Mineral Surface Mining Program.
Ernie?
Yeah, my name is Ernie Dodge Jr. Bay Heights, Bush's Tree, Choctaw, also, this is Don Coachy, the communications director for Intech, and it's good to see everybody here this morning.
Arthur?
That is Arthur Barrow, and the community service coordinator for Needham. Thank you everyone for coming here today.
Thank you. We also have on the call with us BIA Regional Director, Mr. Greg Mahoja.
Good morning. Good morning, Chair Nez, Vice Chair Walker, honorable members of the RDC and others. I'm Greg Mahoja. I'm the Regional Director for Navajo Region BIA. I have my team on as well. I have Miss Angela Arviso, the Deputy Regional Director for Trust Services, Dr. Calvert Curley, Natural Resources, and Ms. Cheryl Curley, Tribal Government Operations. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Angela Arviso, BIA. Ms. Arviso?
Good morning. Anyate Bena Chairman Nez. This is Angela Arviso, the Deputy Regional Director for Trust Services, BIA Navajo Region.
Thank you. Cheryl Curley, BIA.
Yate Bena Chairman Nez, RDC members, Dyson. Good morning, Cheryl Curley, BIA. Yeah.
Thank you. Dr. Calvert Curley.
Good morning, Yate Bena Chairnez and members of the Resources Committee. Thank you very much, Calvert Curley with Navajo Region.
Thank you. Ms. Rowena Jeremiah.
Good morning, Chairman Is and REC members. My name is Rowena Jeremiah. I'm the Minerals Department Director. I'm here. I'm sorry I wasn't able to make it there. There are two individuals from the Minerals Department, William Ski and Travis Begay from the Minerals Department attending in person. Thank you.
Thank you. Department of Justice, Ms. Quinn.
Good morning, Chairman and RDC members and everyone else. This is April Quinn with the Navajo Nation Department of Justice Natural Resources Unit.
Thank you. Shelley Davis, Navajo EPA.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Good morning, Chair. Good morning, members of RDC. My name is Shelby Daisy. I'm a remedial project manager with Navajo EPA.
Thank you. We also have a community member here.
Yeah, they have been in. My name is Gloria Lane, and I'm a community member from Navajo.
Welcome. Thank you. Anybody on the call that wishes to introduce themselves? I hear none. Go ahead. The Navajo chapter for hosting the Resources and Development Committee leadership meeting today. Honorable Stewart is on his way over, so he should be here any time. Honorable Daniels has an appointment. Honorable Begay has other commitments as well at his hometown. So again, so the purpose of our leadership meeting today, the Resources and Development Committee will be conducting an in-person leadership meeting with Navajo Transitional Energy Company, Navajo Department of Justice Natural Resources Unit, Division of Natural Resources, Navajo Nation Land Department, Department of Minerals, Navajo Environmental Protection Agency, Office of the President, Vice President, and U.S. Department of the Interior Bureau of Indian Affairs to discuss the land surrender area of the Navajo mine. Pero baniga sa hitinigi shidi, pero sa anabit sanat jago RDC geding na pero di chinhagedo in tekara anisho agati ahit sapatazhaja DOJ aro the natural resource do land department do minerals aro Navajo EPA Asia Ecuador BIA both pro sani tiro di Kenya which is a chinhaged hasaj Kuchen Nenahanza Biche Hondo Nate Bait of the Put Ego Hashed or Nate Kaya Haki at Sport Begin the Hoki do Namse Hadahana Sonido and the sheep and Nachin Korobe get away that all day. So Asian potato lace, Ado Kashe put it on there. Number 3 will be the presentation discussions. So at this time, we will have a presentation by Navajo Transitional Energy Company, Intech on the land surrender application on the parcel of Navajo mine and update on Intech analysis and review of the land surrender application. So at this time, Dragon, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for this opportunity to share a little bit more information about land surrender, about Navajo mine, about the initiative to return the land to its original owner state and change the purpose of it. You know, there's a lot of to say about Navajo mine. There's a long history since 1963. There are a lot of people who actually work at the mine. Many companies have gone through the mine, changed the ownership, and finally it's back to the Intech Navajo Nation and all the efforts that everybody's trying to do is to make sure that at the end of the day, we return the land to the owners, we return the land to where it's supposed to be, and that's why we're here. You know, back in it's been a while now, not necessarily too long, but what you see here is the original document that probably you already have seen and received. There's a lot of information in that document that was collected. And since the last two meetings that were back in Albuquerque, I believe in March, and then another one in April. Those two meetings were in April. We had a nice mine tour. We were out at the mine, at the land, looking around and being at one of the hills on the area that we are looking to, on the land that we're looking to surrender. So in addition to the information that is available in this document, NTEC was able to collect a little bit more facts, a little bit more hard data that we would like to share today with you. And we hope that's the information that's going to help us to support this decision and going forward with the discussion. What you see here is the area historical ash disposal map. The blue areas that you see, and it's kind of hard to, for those who may not see, I'll try to use the and show. So those are the areas here. The blue areas are the areas that we're talking about that have the ash. You know, initially in the documents that were being presented, not necessarily all the facts were being available, not necessarily because nobody wanted to show it, but we got to realization that we have a little bit more that we can share with you, and that's the primary reason for this presentation today. So I'll go a little bit deeper into the slides to zoom in a little bit in on the areas that we are focusing for today's discussion. So what you see on the left-hand side on that screen, that's originally from 1986 routing study map. It's hard to see the details. We'll get to the details, and it'll give you a little bit more insight about contours, about actually areas that we know for a fact that do have that. On the right-hand side, the right-hand side picture shows the digital ash boundary. It's a little bit zoomed in version of the same information, and it shows outlines the area at lots of areas that have some areas that are covered with ash or buried down. One of the things and discoveries that we wanted to point out today to all of you here, so you can get a little more appreciation about technical data that's available that we can support this conversation, is might be difficult to see, but you can see some of those drill holes that are being used or drilled back in 1985, 1986 to define the boundaries and create those ash boundaries that we know for a fact that they are out there. What's available on those maps is you can see that it's 1986. Excel may not have been randomly available to everybody. So we have, however, we do have a good information, original information from the time. And some of those drill holes that you see, and I will point it out, so the area that has ash is this shaded area in gray, and everything outside should not and does not have ash. So I will demonstrate on an example that may be hard to see, but here's the drill hole number 249. And you can see that drill hole 249 is outside that gray shaded area. So as the drilling was done back 1985, 1986, whenever who was doing the drilling program, they would drill down, and if there's no ash, they would put the coordinates of that drill hole. And then if there's ash, they will put yes. If there is no ash, they will put no. So as the example here shows, you can see that 249 is no ash.
St. Pedro, Vice President Liza. So, ja, man, Roshi, Nichita, Hodin, so.
Yeah, so it's not that I've been say Myron Lizer, you know, Comanche, this land full, I don't know about this team, auto Comanche, that's a chain, classic, that's enough. Good to be here, was invited and, I'm here to, support RDC, but also, Inpic as well, and this is something that's been, waiting to happen, the lands to be, given back to the Navajo Nation, so thank you, Shinnecock, for your leadership and, just look forward to, supporting the whole measure, so, yeah, my folks.
Thank you, Honorable Vice President Liza, for joining us this morning. Go ahead, Mr. Draghi.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Vice President. If you go back to the presentation and the data that's available, so you can see that this 249 drill hole has no action. And then if you go, if we advance the slide, you can see that the blue arrow actually points the drill hole 246 that has ash identified in the hole. So in summary, we have a lot of good technical information that we can firmly confirm that the area being highlighted in gray contains ash. And to get that footprint and to see the outline of the ash, there was approximately 432 drill holes down that. So all that information is documented. Information is available in the historic records at the mine. And based on those drill holes, based on the information being provided, then we were able to digitize that and show that information today and share that information with you. Another thing that we would like to point out, it's 2022, we have Google Earth, Google Maps, so we can pull up all that information and see it right in front of us on our phones. Sean and he's our engineering manager and he helped us to develop it. So what you see here is the outline of the area, but then in blue, you can see those exact same areas in the previous slide being in gray, now in blue. And you can load that map in your phone and you can walk on the land. And at some point you may step over, I'm on ash. Now I'm no longer on ash. So the ash boundaries are clearly defined by going through the historic data, pulling up the information from the drill hole. And now we can show that in any shape or form. And the way that we wanted to show you is in Google Maps and make sure that you have a visual appreciation of where we're at. And for those of you who had the chance to be at the mine tour back in April, that little yellow star, it shows our location where we stepped out of the vehicles and we were able to have a little conversation and talk about the land surrender and talk about the plans going forward. Now, if we advance a little bit more, to give you a little appreciation how far from the highway that the ash is, you can see that in this case is 1,300 feet away from the highway, from the road, the highway. Then the next one is 410 feet. That's probably the closest one that we have. And then here you have 1,400 feet away from the highway. So for the possible future use for something that could be done, make sense. Anything that could support the development, it's quite ways out from the highway. And again, it's clearly defined. We know the locations, we know X and Y coordinates of the ash location, and we can define the ash body very clearly. So that's in essence additional information that we were able to collect. And having this meeting today, we thought there's a good value of showing it. It's a hard data. We know the drill holes, we know the distances, we know the locations of the ash, and we can clearly define how far and point on the map where those locations are. So that's all. It was a quick presentation. We didn't want to spend too much time on many details. We have a whole lot more data to support and show if need be. But on a high level, 20,000 feet, this is the footprint, and this is now open for the discussion. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Honorable Chair Nez. Earlier, when I introduced myself, I forgot to give my plans, which is major sin in Navajo culture. Go ahead, leading Shalom Sunny, but just she that's another door, because she but I salam. Of course, I don't speak much in the national day, there's not a thank you for the presentation, for the booklet, the total study that was given to the chapter. Thank you so much. There was concern expressed earlier that the whole reclaimed area was full of ashes and could not possibly be developed. We couldn't, the community, the Nanzan chapter couldn't develop it further. However, this is excellent. Now the exact location where so-called the unstable sites are located. However, we as a community have not really seen sinkholes in these areas for as long as it's been reclaimed. We've been here, well, since 1950s, the late 1950s, when the lease was approved and operations started. So this is very good. Now this will help our PUC and the chapter officers and community begin to discuss development, whatever development we have, we will begin discussing that. So thank you so much for this information. And we appreciate the opportunity to be able to make our concerns, present them. And thank you, Honorable Vice President Leisner, for coming today to Navajo chapter. We really, really appreciate your presence, because all the years that Navajo has been here, and ever since the late 50s, when the land was approved, relinquished for economic development, from the lake on south, that's all Navajo, all the way to Vernon. We cannot use it because it's mineries. So we're just right here near the river's edge. This is all Navajo has left, and all the way to the south. So, and all these years, we did not have a tribal leader come to say, chapter. Yon Israelila Bakada Kaden Natan Natan the door at a vegetation. So we're still waiting to hear that. And we've had several leaders come through here, and our delegates that have represented our chapter have always been strong, and we appreciate that. But thank you for this information.
Thank you, Lucinda. Lucinda was a high school counselor at Kirtland Central High School. She has witnessed many state champions by Kirtland Central Broncos. Yeah, so, but Lucinda was the secretary treasurer for a number of years, as well as vice president of the chapter and chapter president. I think after I'm done, she might run for delegate position too, so we'll support her if she does. Again, I didn't get to be either. If you'll go back to the other slide where the holes were drilled for action for Kagia. Dishi at Intech, it wasn't Intech that was doing this. At PhD bulletin, Utah International. At launching at the Nishko. Hoshi at the Latida. Does it say what the distance of the hole or the diameter of these drillings were?
You may have a side.
We have more information about the drill holes. I'm not sure that we have the diameter of the drill hole. But when looking what we do right now at the mine, when we do the drilling, exploratory drilling, you're looking to be probably 4 to 5 inches in diameter. So if we assume they use the similar rigs back in time, you're looking between 3 and 5 inches in diameter.
Thank you. Hello, Shannon. I'm not denegating it cost me. So, I'm not denegating. We have this binder that was given to us, Intech Land Surrender. It has a lot of information in here, as well as the Intech documents related to ash disposal at Navajo Mine. And the compare that's for Dishi, the machine, Eda Horzanigata, Nifachin Hata Gato, Nzago, Nachbek. Arakro, Mr. Nolly, Inela, Navajo Nation, not Ani, President or Chairman, Dota Igata, a Kehat Nina Nizar, Podo, Nihikaya, Nada Sadon, when Nachin Peso La, Elia, Shudas E. Tagahotzan, the Dota, Smago Peso, but Adas Neto. Podo, Nidikishin. Name Kitna. So Nina is still waiting for that thank you banner. And I believe today just might happen by a vice president here with us. So we won't compel him to say anything, but we'll just leave it up to his heart. But then there was a time that the local leadership, the local people were trying to advocate for the local people, saying, Kodoki say Gishandinan the state of Hadon de Nego. Do Bohanet Zada. And there, something throughout the Navajo Nation, people have worked here at this mine. But today, Kodo Kaya has Anigi Nature Hondo Nenegi Toita E Archibahon Titole. D Kaya Haki for choice Edo Reclamation Nadia. Pujo without Sekunda BIA Bichin. Adoda Sekpushan or Navajo Nation Bichin. Poroshi, Mr. Holona, the Ham, so that Chihodo, Adon did that. Bekeret at chapter which one of net of the Koshi Ben Bitnahan of the so at this time I'm going to give some time over to Ninanzov Secretary Treasurer. Roshbahan Bash Night in the okay. Juanita, I would like to hear the history. She came there, that pond that no, yeah, Jiggy Bag, one.
My mom and dad had a sheep camp up there. Their names were Salago and Annie Dodge. And for years and years, they were there. And when Navajo Mine asked them to move, they appraised their log cabin, their oven, their sheep camp. And they were only paid $2,000. And I'll always remember my mom just disappointed on her face. My dad died right when they were gonna move. And Navajo Mine only paid $1,000 on his funeral expenses. And they never came back to check to see where my mom was gonna live. And that's how I looked at them. Not healthy.
Yeah, that's Lojan Watson, Vice President again. This one, the picture you see up here that says Watson Pit, that was my mother and father's grazing land. Also, my father's name is Warner Watson and my mother was Mary Watson in the Baltic Sea. They also sold out their grazing permit also. That's where we used to herd sheep. And we used to herd our sheep all the way to Morgan Lake to get water for our sheep and the horses.
You're right, yeah.
So we did it just like the Wheeler's parents and the Descendants' parents. Were the original that had to be removed from the Navajo mine. And the compensation that we got there was nothing. They, a few $1,000 to each family. Which to this is not worth to pay. But also, a while back, we also had a couple of resolutions that were written here where some of us live in cinder block homes. When the blastings were going on at Navajo Mine, it cracked our cinder block homes. These cinder blocks that we live in, the cracks are so bad that you try to fix it with cement, it doesn't work. When some of the people had broken windows, loosened doors, nothing was done about it. We had resolutions that been set up there. To this day, some of these cinder block homes still have cracks in their homes. So this blasting that was going on 24/7 destroyed some of the homes. And we still live in those cinder blocks. From I still live in a cinder block home that has crack in it. So again, we really want this land reclaim to happen with church in the Navajo chapter because it rightfully belongs to us. So we're gonna, we've been sending resolutions to the Winter Rock office since 1996. And if it didn't go through, we would resend the resolution. And we've never heard back that I know of. So this would be a joyous day for all of us here in the Navajo community if we could get our reclaimed land. we've been working with intent. So, because as a community leaders here, we have plans. It's not, we're not gonna build homes there because they suggested it wasn't a good idea, but we plan on having other steps. So we just want to, we're just so thankful that everybody's here to listen in.
Just a little bit, Honorable Chair. We ladies, yes, we are still affected by what had happened many, many years ago. My grandpa used to herd sheep more to the southeast of the area, and his name was Husky Yellow Man, Husky Tui, no. And he was Ninonazak's first council delegate. And he served on the council with Annie, Juanita, and he was also appointed to the advisory committee. But in general, early on, you know, they had a vision for our young people and our community. Not only our community received jobs at Navajo Mine and APS, but the neighboring towns, all the different nationalities, Balaganas, Nakais, and others from the other parts of the Navajo Nation. So we always say and sing the same old song that Ninonazak chapter is the most impacted on the Navajo Nation, because we had to give up so much of our land base for economic development of the Navajo Nation. And we did not receive a cent. Oh yeah, now, we do and we did collaborate with our corporate neighbors like PNM, APS, and Navajo Mine. We were able to get District 13 scholarships and a PNM youth fund for our community, but direct revenue we did not receive. So thank you for the other honorable delegates listening and those present for the favorable action for our request that these reclaimed areas be returned to Ninonazak. Again.
Thank you very much. Just a friendly reminder to my colleagues here. We're gonna have a meeting up at Black Mesa. The nation so after needle is harder. Kay again hitching one door, Nancy, Kayentamine Reclamation Exports, Nadia Gata needle when ODC travels to Black Mesa. In reference to the Kayenta mine, they're also going to be asking for that land back. A quaggy farm, Chigoshin Pagin, Gediki, Katron with the Nanzado, Adan, Niki, Oshinte Yokado there. And before we move on, we will probably have to adjust our video and have that towards the end there. So, but I would like for you all to so you know what they look like. Again.
Adults like that, they thought to the Shadi adult is industry, touchy, certificates, adult, the lungs that move main and adult and lungs, production on the instant for lecture.
Thank you, Honorable Secretary, for being here today. Honorable Stewart.
Good morning, Chairman tonight. On today at our meeting with RDC and then the Ninonazak chapter officials and NTEC as well. They are Wilson C. Stewart Jr. and Shadow Self Audit Nasha. Ado Kuroshima Art of Nelly and question of the position of the home. Apoko Asia, we have a open vision, those 9,000 to put the face of the name and give them that by mass also.
That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, what we will do is go down to B, under number 3, presentation discussion. Discussion on the land surrender application on the parcel of Navajo mine with Navajo Department of Justice. We'll have Ms. Quinn speak to this, and then Natural Resources Division of Natural Resources, Land Department, Minerals, and Navajo EPA, as well as the President's Office. So at this time, Ms. Quinn, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chairman. I appreciate the opportunity to speak on this issue today. I don't think I'm going to add anything new that I haven't already brought up before, especially because I don't think there are any other attorneys listening to this call. I didn't hear Bernard Masters or anybody from NTEC, so I'm not going to raise anything new. I'm just kind of going to give kind of a summary of what my concerns are with respect to NTEC's application for this land relinquishment. And so the main concern obviously is the coal ash that is contained on these lands. My concern is that there's no written agreement about who will maintain responsibility for the coal ash once the land is turned over to the Navajo Nation. In NTEC's application to BIA, Section 6 of the application, there are certain recommendations made by both NTEC and the Four Corners owners. And of note, NTEC is one of the owners of Four Corners, but there are certain recommendations being made having to do with additional investigation of the coal ash, including groundwater monitoring, and they are also recommending a restrictive covenant be placed on these lands, basically restricting the Navajo Nation from certain uses of the land. And that includes, not drilling any sort of wells and not really disturbing the land more than 5 feet below the surface. So restricting our use of the land. And, it's just concerning to me as an attorney for the Navajo Nation, the attorney who advises the Navajo Nation government on energy-related matters and, on coal-related matters. And I'm also one of the attorneys for Navajo EPA. So it's very concerning to me to see that this land has coal ash, but there's no written agreement as far as who is going to be responsible for this coal ash moving forward. And what if there is an issue? What if it somehow migrates into the groundwater and begins moving off site? Who's going to be responsible for that? It's not clear. And so all I'm asking for as the nation's attorney is some sort of agreement with both NTEC and the Four Corners owners. And I even went as far to say, they don't have to work out their liabilities between one another. NTEC and the Four Corners owners, they don't have to work all that out right now. I would just feel comfortable if it is just made clear that it will not be the Navajo Nation who is responsible. This was a recommendation by our outside counsel when NTEC acquired the mine. There's a memo from 2013 that says this issue kind of needs to be fleshed out. And I haven't been provided any documentation from NTEC or APS saying, hey, we've resolved this issue. If I could see something like that, that would make me much more comfortable. But if there's nothing like that, then that's why I'm pushing for an agreement, among the nation, NTEC, and the Four Corners owners. I'm not saying this land can't be relinquished. I understand it's important to the chapter, for further economic development. I don't want to stand in the way of that, but I also have to protect the nation's legal interests and, protect against, something that could go wrong with respect to the coal ash. There could be a US EPA rule that imposes additional responsibilities having to do with coal ash. And I'm just trying to protect the nation and, you know, just kind of put something in writing saying, you know, whatever happens, it's not going to be us. You know, if we do agree to some sort of restrictive covenant that restricts the Navajo Nation, then I think there needs to be something beyond that. I don't think it's appropriate for NTEC and the Four Corners owners to just say, Navajo Nation, here's how we think you should use your land. I would say, okay, well then let's just put this all down in writing. You know, you can't tell us what to do and then claim no responsibility for the coal ash, is kind of what my thinking on the matter. So, you know, I'm just saying, let's just get this issue resolved. Let's put something in writing so that we can all move on and the land can be relinquished to the Navajo Nation, relinquished to the chapter, and then the chapter can come up with some sort of plan on how to use this land going forward. So I'll stop there, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Quinn. At this time, we'll go to the Division of Natural Resources and Land Department, Mr. Polona. Production, activity, aspect of the Kaya, not on one door need.
Like that, criminal resource development. Okay. What the student panel, everybody is out of my that. And Vice President, good morning, good to see you, have you here. Of course, when you're going to get land back, that's an exciting day, you will be able to get more land bases than what it was used. Say that, hey, yeah, on that, there's a lot of things that we deal with is the historical aspect. There is something, I guess, that we would look at. And what were the agreements? Chevron mine, for example. That will come back to the nation and remain wildlife habitat and grazing. So those are what I mean is that what does that really say when the land or relinquished back, taken out of that lease, given back? It comes back to the Navajo Nation. And then from our office, as the DOJ mentioned, we look at that parcel of land, as you know, that's not the Edo. In this case, we're talking about potash now. I say that though, but and then but in this side, on the bottom, you have the APD. Of course, what are we able to use the lands for? What are the options that we have? Not for so other so what can those lands be used for? Those probably provide us some guidance, some restrictions, some opportunities. We'll always look for, is it clean? Is it safe? Because we don't want to get something back and then later find out that there are liabilities. Why did you give us lands that are not safe for us to utilize? So that is why we have to ensure that for us to receive land back from a user, whatever it was used for, doesn't matter, home site, anything else. We have to make sure there's no environmental concerns. Oil, gas, diesel, was they ever used? Was that all of these criteria tend to be? We did all the studies, they've done here 432 drilling spot to determine where the potash is. So that information is what's going to be used to make a decision. Can we say it's safe for use, or what could it be used for? If there's no other disturbance, then it could go back to grazing. Could we develop on it economically? We need that information. Okay, all the studies have been done. It's been cleared. EPA has cleared it. And they say it can be addressed or mediated along with minerals, providing us guidance as well. Then we can recommend to the president's office when that land comes back with relinquishment and say, we do accept the fact, or we accept the fact with these conditions. So there's still some guidance. Let's say in the event it all comes back and it's accepted back by the president's office, he signs off on the relinquishment and accepts the land back. Now, then the chapter would then submit and withdraw to our office and say, we want to withdraw that whole area for community development, which means it could mean a park, it could mean trails, it could mean, you know, whatever it can be used for. So it'd be led with what? Oh, right, it's a casino. I'm just kidding. You want the golf course. See, if that can be done with minimum impact to air, then that gives you guidance of what you can do. Then your planning will go into effect. And that was, you know, that's a good idea. Then you get the withdrawal for community development, it'll cover everything. For the chapter withdraw, how many acres, and you have all the settings done, so it will be easier for use because you've had all the settings. It's not raw land that's never been used, but you have all the environmental settings to go with it. So you pretty much just need to ask, and it'll be assigned to the chapter. I say down here, you know, it's okay, no, I don't resolution that area, and you're right, somebody mentioned there's been more impact. Not only the mine, naturally. Big impact. But when you look, you see all the development along the river. All the farming that's happening and people want to move back, but where do you put them? So those are the challenges that we'll be dealing with to continue to make our community viable and growing, moving forward. So we're kind of on the back end from the land department's standpoint is that once these studies, everything has been done. And the environmental and DOJ all agree that everything has been done. It is now acceptable. The minimum amount of liability can happen. So that's one way to look at it. The other way, I was talking to my integral, which is one of them. How come you guys just don't sublease it directly? You know, so there's different options. What does the community want the land to be used for? And that's one thing is being able to find out that it's safe and you're able to do something. So that's something to think about. Then we would recommend, we look at the survey of the area, does it fit exactly with what was withdrawn? All of that we're not including somebody else's lease area over here in it, but we have to just make sure that the right amount is coming back, we know where it is, it's clean, it's safe, then we can proceed and recommend for it to be relinquished back to the nation. Hey, quiet. Thank you. BIA is involved because they granted the lease, the mining lease. Navajo Nation, for those you can, on the mineral rights of ways. That's it's on the box of that. But the chaos is all, you get it, and you like it, you have to have on, you get it, Navajo Nation, yeah, they just like, has on the egg, and you like it down. So we have now the authority to handle all surface leasing on Navajo, except rights of ways for outside companies and minerals. Those are still with BIA. So BIA is involved because when they got the mining lease and looked through all that area, nothing BGAU got. At the request of the nation consenting, that's what they wanted to do, what it was being used for, the UK or the other BIA did not speak. So their name is still attached to it. So whatever we decide, we're gonna ask BIA to support us. Any other questions? Any comments, questions? Okay. I'll be around today if you need to talk.
Thank you, Mr. Halona. But now you make it seem like it's going to take years again for studies to be made. That book there, intake, that honorable chair showed, has all those studies. They've all been completed. It's all ready. And they have people who know what they're doing. Experts in the field that have conducted all these studies, and it's all in that booklet. I don't know if you've seen the booklet. And we've seen it and we feel comfortable with it, and that's why we're saying we should know, community, we should know which areas not to develop. And what we were asking at the last resources committee meeting here was, we don't want any restrictive covenants on it. Because thousand, you know, I think we were smart enough to realize those things, and our people here in our community, most of them are retired and they're ready to help the community with whatever knowledge. Just like Mr. Gage, she had like over 35 years in the Social Security Administration, even having won a national award. So we have capable people that can help plan, and we want that land back for personal and historical reasons. You know? And it means something to us. And when we go out there to meditate, just to visit, it makes us feel good. So even for our mental health, we need that. So again, and I just wanted to mention that all that information is in that book.
Okay, I appreciate your comments. And our only concern is that we make the right decision based on the information that's there, and feel comfortable that we're not transferring a liability to somebody else later on. Then it's going to come back and say, you guys could have done better. So I guess we're just trying to cover all those bases to make sure. You know, we talked about a warranty already. Well, let's come back with a warranty that it is safe. There is no problem. There's no issue. So those are the things that we want to do, and it's all really based upon the safety of the community once it's given back. That's really our concern. So as soon as they say we consider liability, we really reduce liability, we can move forward from our office. That's all we're waiting on. We need those supporting documents. 80 then we can move the relinquishment, and then just recommend that the chapter be ready with their resolution to withdraw. So it'll be a quicker transfer. Okay? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Halona. Ashay Yaha, Minerals Department, Ms. Rowena Jeremiah.
Good morning, Chairman Nez. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for allowing me to speak this morning. I just want to echo what both April Quinn and Mike Colonna stated earlier. I don't think anybody here on the call is against refusing to relinquish the land. I think what we are concerned with is the safety of that relinquishment, the safety to the communities, the safety to the people, not to those of us that are here on this call, not for anybody within our generation. What we're concerned with is in the future, when none of us here on this call are on this earth anymore. That's what we're concerned with, that far into the future. The Minerals Department completed its inspection that was required for this, to give its approval for this land relinquishment. We went through the staff went through the inspections using the federal regulations that they follow for land relinquishment, and this is the Surface Mining Control and Reclamation Act of 1977. That's the primary federal law that regulates the environmental effects of coal mining. So they found a few minor issues that NTEC easily completed. So we were ready to go forward with the approval of recommending the land relinquishment. What our only concern was this, the ash, the coal ash. And what made it a concern is because the regulations that we follow didn't cover coal ash specifically. And another concern was in NTEC's request for the land relinquishment, the application itself, they themselves provided recommendations that no residential development within the surrendered areas should be allowed. And the reason was for this coal ash. They also talked about in this application about the restrictive covenant, which April Department of Justice is recommending that it be put in writing, because we don't know exactly what that restrictive covenant entails. It's mentioned, but it's like there's nothing in writing. So that was another concern. There was also some more concerns that NTEC and the Four Corners owners mentioned in that application that made the Navajo Nation, those of us who were reviewing the application, step back a bit and make a final recommendation that this partial lease surrender for these lands would be for range land and grazing only. So I just wanted to share that with everybody, that there's reasons for the decisions that, or the recommendations that the Minerals Department made. There's reasons for the reasons that behind the Department of Justice's recommendations, behind Land Department's recommendations. It's not just because we're trying to not get the land relinquished. We're just trying to make it safe for the communities. But it is up to leadership. You know, we're pointing all of these things out to leadership to take into consideration for the final, the final decision. And if you would like to have a little more information on what the inspectors did and their findings, Travis Begay and Mr. William Skeet are there to answer those questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Jeremiah. Again, hello. Nature Kainji, Kache, Yaha, Nana, Navajo Nation Environmental Protection Agency. Ms. Belinda Shirley, you have the floor. Ms. Shirley?
Eric, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Yat ebene, Shanat Ani, RDC, Fishmatas under the Nothini Yat ebene. I did the high notes Agido, my colleagues this morning, Yat ebene to all of you. My concerns regarding this topic, if I could just kind of dive into what I've been thinking about lately. And I know that there has been already a great deal of discussion, and I know I share the same concerns as our Navajo Department of Justice, Mr. Mike Colonna, and then Ms. Chair Maya as well too. And I think one of my biggest concern is the liability. And Intech, when it acquired the land, I think there could have been some due diligence to what was there, and just knowing that there was that deposit or that coal ash that was there. So at the time, there might have been no, how would you say, laws or regulations, but in this, as we move forward, we're left to consider that there are going to be legislations or even regulations that will cover coal ash in the future. Yesterday, one of the tasks I had was to meet with US EPA, and we had a good discussion regarding the coal ash deposits, and some of the things that I've learned, it makes me even more worried about what we're talking about today. For instance, my US EPA colleagues shared with me that there are going to be regulations that are being promulgated and most likely will come into full force here soon. So the other questions revolve around who would be the responsible party if these regulations, these federal regulations, were to be enacted, and who would be the responsible party. And that could potentially leave the Navajo Nation as a responsible party. And Delegate Stewart knows very well how a Navajo-owned entity and having the Navajo Nation as a potential responsible party can play out. And I look to Delegate Stewart to say that his work with our PM Maples regarding the Navajo forestry industry products, I mean, we're still experiencing a great deal of work there. There is a lot of remediation that needs to be completed at that site. So it's just, there is a lot to consider. And for my part here today, I do want to listen to what everyone has to share. But I am also coming with this worry for the nation that if these federal regulations are to become, are to be enacted here soon, what does that mean for us? So those would be my thoughts as I participate in this Zoom. And Shanat Ani and Shikeno Fini, I do apologize for not being there in person. So with that, Chair, I return the floor back to you. And then again, myself, Ms. Eugenia Quintana, and then Ms. Shelby Daisy from Navajo EPA. We're here to listen, to learn, and then if there's any questions that we could be of help with, we certainly want to do that too. So yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Shirley. When we get to the next steps to be taken on the land surrender, Ms. Shirley, perhaps it would be best to have you here in person at Navajo, as well as all the directors to be here, and the people here can listen to all of you at that time. So, Ache, Mr. Skeet, would you Mr. Skeet used to work at the mine here also.
Chairman Nezo, RDC member Kong. So, Asian, 1957, those early 60s, UK, Asian, Navajo, BOA, Asian, Tomato, pronunciation, Ako kadeti shiri kada teaching the Danish. Ako shikwa echina nashishka pa. Desi no na kano which. Kare yandi sa osan echina mishna. Shirene na ta haiko ra ka desh kudevo na chibata. Ina nashishin. Atile ben na nashin. Ito ay tansin pa. Nashikshi. I think that when she and sexy since so she's talking now. Ako and that she what oh now it's not there. Ako only da this thing not like a dark what's up with that English agitation on this in there and then put by now the short country don't need. Mr. Ed Ray, A. Kudomananish, could never know A. It's not Michelle. Ako A. Panache, A. had to fish in talk where it's not in nice in the area. It's Hatan. That's in go. The last in a in there, and there the girl got beat here. Ako. Pues, siempre que o poco. Y cuando sorpresa ando na 1996, because the car who next the happily because she hit a union, not she nothing. Of course, the civilian India, they bought a photo, but no. I don't send those Katodi, and they can't those me. For AI, until has Kizo, those. I don't know if it's a way you have to expert. Now, for Adia, now car, Okoti, not Closhipo, that should do. Here she goes in the net of nothing that cardinal. Of course, deep it is not spa, she. And the of civilian was efficient in the civilian of the livestock of the grazing program in this ash disposal area of 2,000 plus acres that NTEC has under application. Of course, I saw a I think we go to the open. Hardly condition, yeah. Should it? So it's not. How did it that in like building? Oh, wait, that either when you make not be part of the hand. Oh, people, Kaya, never Kaya. Impossible. Okay, Kari Ensign, Navajo Tribal Enterprise. Kaya, Kitchen, but I need what the Utah International. PhD, those general lecturers were previous owners. Okay. Kaya, if it does in, so kitchen, but I need Washington, then if it is in. Okay. Now, Jacques Washington, they had on it, 1977, though this season, they were going to the fixated in so based on our so teaching the initiative. Okay, we should enact land use planning resolution day the Ashton, the Navajo Washington. BK and Cardinal, like all the land use planning production area, nothing they became the start of it. Based so yeah. Okay. Now that reason. Okay, I Adam. Okay, like all the phone are and it's really hard to chairman there. He that whole Sunday. And kids is when they get wet, he can't all cut. He can't all cut. Okay, I knew that to the net. Okay. The now so based on we surrender, not only sheep BIA but the Hala Eka BIA Memo Agreement. Navajo Nation though if he create but the Secretary of the Interior. Okay, he sheeted that's okay, I think that organization of the not on the sheet but the BIA still has the responsibility with surrender. Okay. The the next step, like what are the realities? Okay. Mr. Holora and had seen options. As I mentioned, the coal industry is the most heavily regulated industry. With pre-law before OSM in 1977. The permit also acknowledges the jurisdictional pre-law areas in their permit application. And BIA has the sole responsibility in those areas of the pre-law as well as BLM. Prior to that was the USGS, which is now BLM. BLM and BIA are cooperative agreements to the lead agency of the federal agency that oversees coal mine operation of the Office of Surface Mining Reclamation Enforcement out of the Denver Western Regional Office. And the Mineral Department Surface Mining Program participates in joint inspection with the federal agency. And that's our role. And in addition to this re-surrender, Mr. Begay with the Mineral Department and I went out and reconnaissance inspected that area 2 years ago. And the area has been established over near 40 years ago. The vegetation is still responding in spite of the drought. It's still staying succession with Mother Nature. And Father Sky bringing the moisture to Mother Earth. We all pray for moisture. And this area is still in a drought. And down in the southern part here, south of Europe, we get rain every evening. We're blessed with rain. We can't not begin. The other thing I want to put an emphasis on the application with NTEC is that the recommendation is no development and no designated disposal areas. Whoever is going to develop and they encounter the ash, you stop, or you at least you read it. That's the condition. Whoever wants to develop, it's pretty much mostly a recommendation. And as
We want development. So your next stage of action, I think you're gonna have to look at some specific realities and be responsive to the Navajo community and the leadership. I can't last it certified at any to the natural, not that it's sanity, I can't last follow. Thank you, Bill. But in our Shinki in check funded of the Secretary, Vice President Advisor, we'll have the floor, and after that, it'll be BIA, Nanda.
Yeah, so that's, obviously, there's a proper way of going forward that the nation needs to protect itself, so that's well established. Appreciate NDOJ, April Quinn, and Minerals, Rowena, Jeremiah, chiming in, and also Mike, Alona Land. The nation, it does behoove us to look at all measures effective in the Navajo Nation. And as Vice President of the Executive Branch as well here on Navajo, who also has a background of business and the private sector, a lot of times these two modes, they clash. And so certainly we understand the chapter and your concerns and the expediting of this measure based on your previous resolutions that you've passed and sent forth to our council in years past. You know, at this time, I would recommend that that we proceed expeditiously with all of those measures in place, protecting the nation for future exposure, for future regulations that may come into the light. We are in a time where the environment is a very prominent topic. It is also very, very touchy within this segment, mining, coal mining. And I would say that because of the holding that I represent, when we talk about environment, protect the environment, that's one thing because of all of the slights in the past, right? Perhaps we didn't have the breadth of knowledge or the experience and the expertise that we do have. Also want to appreciate clearly the director of EPA, everybody here that has spoken as speaking rightly, protecting the Navajo Nation's bottom line. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But going forward as well, there's a term called diminishing returns. The longer we wait, Gary, and delay these, it's going to cost Intech money. And so Intech obviously don't want to make everything about the bottom line, but they do have to report back to the Navajo Nation, to RDC, and appreciate the oversight, Mr. Chairman, that you and your committee bring forward and the expertise in which you hand out and judge rightly. It's kind of a perfectly working mechanism where if we just understand one another, we have more meetings like this here, not to belabor, but simply to make sure that the methods and the concept and the understanding, and I think we heard the word responsive. These are all keenly intermingled. And when we can pay homage to the chapter here and we thank you, the Namasak chapter, for your sacrifice in the land over the years. We've watched young ones grow up and become leaders themselves. And you're right, I think everybody's well established that the leadership that's deciding these and what it's going to look like will probably not be here for the future benefit of our children that are going to grow up and look forward to utilizing these lands here, maybe once for economic development or however the chapter wishes to use it. But your sacrifice in the past should also be buoyed or should be understood going forward as the nation decides how to handle this best forward that time is money, money is time. And it's gonna be one of those perfectly blended situations, again, responsive. I think that's the key word that we'll use here, responsive. Make it a chapter, understand all of the measures, and as you do that, it's gonna be, it's probably in your mindset, in your opinion, it's gonna be delayed response, right? The nation's central government moving slowly as we have done so in the past. But also, I believe that responding to the challenges that this leadership is going to go forward with, I press our Navajo Nation leadership to work expeditiously with the chapter to bring them their resolve, bring them the response that they so desire, and fully acknowledging their sacrifices of the past here. I think the leadership of our chairman here has rightfully paid homage to that. And I do, I call on RDC to, in some time in the real near future, to acknowledge your history of surrendering these lands for the benefit of the whole Navajo Nation. All 110 chapters have benefited from the revenues that was honed out and the jobs that were created, the region benefited as well. But I think going forward, it would really behoove us as leadership to acknowledge those sacrifices of chapters in the past and to, I won't say vanity, but just to acknowledge and respond to, I think that's a key word going forward. And also knowing too that the response should be put in place with a time, perhaps some deadlines where we feel comfortable, which puts the onus on EPA, puts the onus on our DOJ, and puts the onus on INTEC to make sure that the nation is protected. So all hands on deck mentality. And again, that's just spoken from somebody who understands the business element, the time is money concept, and not to rush things where we're, I guess, proceeding too fast. But again, in response to an acknowledgement of the sacrifice of the Navajo chapters, lands in the past, and to fully, I guess, give them the I don't want to say, I guess I want to say honor, sacrificing land, especially when land is precious, and perhaps future growing of farming lands or whatnot could be that. Certainly the animals have been already up there. And I also want to acknowledge that INTEC's prowess in reclaiming the land, reclaiming to the point that they have received reclamation awards in the past. And to acknowledge them too that this is their track record, and I know it's in their best interest to protect not only the Navajo Nation, but also themselves. They have a board to respond to, and I think it's a fine working mechanism where the board also understands that this exposure here behooves them as well to protect INTEC as well. And so I think there'll be many, I don't want to say many more meetings, but there will be more meetings where hopefully everybody's questions, concerns, issues are all resolved. And that just means being responsible here. Probably kind of veil my support of the Navajo chapter with supporting the Navajo Nation, but I think it's a finely tuned cohesiveness that's going to be needed for us to go forward. And nobody likes oversight very over too much, right? But also nobody likes handling measures too quickly that we expose ourselves for future EPA resolution, future EPA enactment later on. So it's a finely working mechanism going forward. And I understand coal. We love coal and the power that it gave us. It was very reliable. And then even going forward, when the nation owns 3 or 4 gold coal mines, it behooves us as leaders to know everything about them. It behooves us as leaders to understand and also to protect our investments and maintain our assets as well. So I just wanted to say that I have no problem as the vice president, even though the trajectory and the narrative was going us away from coal. We still have these coal mines. We still need to look to the future that coal will provide. whether there's a coal sequestration or coal carbon isolation that could be done. Coal is still our friend, and coal is still providing jobs for this region and this chapter here. So I just want to thank you all for your time and look forward to being a part of future discussions. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Again, thank you. At this time, we'll give some time over to the Bureau of Indian Affairs Regional Director, Mr. Greg Mahoja.
Thank you, Chairman. This is Greg Mahoja. At this time, I'd like to turn the discussion over to our realty folks who may have some insight on the land relinquishment. One issue we have, I've just got a note from our environmental folks that they're having difficulty getting on. So we may not be able to talk about the environmental issues with the ash today, but we can get you a response if they aren't able to successfully join. So with your permission, I'd like to turn it over to our realty folks, our Regional Realty Officer, Dina Ness.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. This is Dina Ness, Regional Realty Officer. Unfortunately, our mineral supervisory specialist is out in the field today. But just to make sure things short and quick, we will be anticipating the application and reviewing all the information that is going to come with it, and to be assured that we are going to follow all the necessary rules and regulations and laws that pertain to this transaction. Once we have all the information, we'll definitely have more information to give back to everyone else. Thank you.
Okay. What is go a go niket hasna. They are chasing at the neck at you. Kodo Papa OG Department of Justice then. Section 6.0 coal combustion byproduct. Before Intech acquired the Navajo mine, the mine owner used coal combustion byproduct CCB generated by the Four Corners power plant. Units 4 and 5 as a backfill material to reclaim mine land. The previous owners of the Navajo mine accepted CCB for disposal from 1971 to 2008. In 1981, the previous owners of the Navajo mine and the Four Corners power plant owners memorialized the ash disposal practices in a waste disposal agreement. In 1985, the Navajo Nation approved of the practice in Amendment Number 4 to the Navajo mine lease. CCB backfilled mined out pits and ramps to help achieve approximate original contours of mined lands. CCB deposited at Navajo mine included fly ash, bottom ash, and scrubber sludge. At the time, using CCB as backfill was seen as the best long-term, mutually beneficial solution for CCB disposal. CCB is generally regulated under Subtitle D of the Resource Conservation and Recovery Act as a solid waste, except at surface coal mines under the jurisdiction of OSMRE, OSMIR. The OSMIR allows CCB disposal as reclamation. Although SMCRA, SMCRA, neither expressly permits or prohibits the practice. OSMIR guidance directs that disposal practices must be consistent with the environmental protection standards of SMCRA, its implementing regulations and solid waste disposal requirements. Precautionary measures have been taken to prevent CCB from being exposed on the surface and to prevent plant roots and surface water from directly coming into contact with the buried coal ash. In 2015, the Comprehensive Hydraulic Impact Assessment for Navajo Mine required by SMCRA analyzed the potential impacts of CCB disposal at the Bitsui and Watson areas of the Navajo Mine. The CHIA found that CCB disposal areas have been designed to have positive drainage away from the ash and avoid any flooding, sheet flow, or other collection of water above or adjacent to disposal areas. In addition, geological conditions surrounding the Navajo Mine pits where coal ash was deposited create favorable conditions for coal ash disposal in pits. The pit floor lies directly on top of a shale and mudstone geographic layer. This layer restricts vertical transport of CCB. Leachate-laden water. Together, geological conditions and planned water drainage specifications have kept most of the permanent program and interim lines ash deposits unsaturated. As verified by monitoring well data. However, some wells on pre-law lands have become water saturated due to irrigation of nearby lands by Navajo Agricultural Products Industry, NAPI, a Navajo Nation enterprise. NAPI's activities have raised groundwater tables and increased surface water movement on pre-law lands. This area of pre-law lands were mined in 1964 to 1965. And coal ash was deposited in the 1970s prior to SMCRA and before any NAPI activity commenced. The CHIA explains that it would take 290 years for water from the Bitsui mine to flow to the San Juan River alluvial aquifer. Based on the above, OSMIR found in the CHIA that reclamation of the CCB deposits within the surrender area will perform properly to minimize groundwater impact. OSMIR finds that the operations of Navajo Mine have been designed to minimize impacts within the permanent area and to prevent material damage to the hydraulic balance outside of the permanent area. Shidana Fenike, Koros Nankoti, Kaki, Yaha, Koron Hichi, Kapaladan, Ketcher, Akoro, the Nachinki, Korobe, Niketan the Haznakishi, 80 Be Bafan Sindo, Peter. The Entech Avalanche might Navajo Mine with Gago Pichin had a Gedi Adet, the Yok, Gedeto, the Koro. Sediato, Ashi, Deep, Auto Panel, Negoshin, Teshitoti Petpota Hegi at the Ishnalo get the Egota Diado Pick the fish gate Kroya have nebels Ani Poneta Nico Coco. A Pujidevun Savoshi Koron kitchen out of the Corona home Tanakido Kashay funded of Akro enter. So they can respond. Dragon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your explanation. And I would like to put some comments on some of the information questions that were raised earlier in the discussion. The first one that I had on the list was about chia study and cumulative hydrological impact study. I believe that we have done enough from Mr. Chairman. We understand that there is no impact from that ash. One thing that I want to point out is that as far as the restricted covenants, that's the information that APS came out, and in behalf of the all owners did say that it should be there. That's not NTEC's stand. Our stand is that we don't share that opinion. That's something that Navajo Nation, the chapter, and all together should be evaluating and realizing the potential benefit versus the potential downside effect. But one thing I'd like to point out when we look into that area comparing to entire area of a little bit over 2,200 acres, the area of the land that has that's mixed with the soil, it's only 17%. So out of the whole area that's being impacted by the ash disposal, only 17% of the total land that's being available for the mining has any contact with the soil. So looking from the percent perspective, we should consider that's not that's NTEC's. So again, I just want to reiterate that NTEC does not have position being provided by the APS in the name and behalf of all the owners. Another thing that to make sure that we have understanding is that NTEC does not and cannot make any commitments and come in any agreements with APS to take any responsibility for the ash. NTEC came way after that ash was put down in the ground. There were previous owners, mine owners who did that at the time when the decisions were made for ash to be buried and disposed and used as a beneficial material to bring the post-mining topo up to the certain elevation. NTEC wasn't there. So that's another thing that we would like to point out and make sure that we have a clear understanding. So there are things that did happen, but also NTEC's position and what we'd like to suggest is to make sure that we all work together on this, including Navajo Nation itself, including the chapter itself, and start looking for the good solution and turn that back to the owners. So again, that's what NTEC is position is to make sure that we provide the support and provide the data, provide the information to hopefully get to the resolution soon enough.
Thank you. None final syndicating. Tish up on my door. Robin, if not snaggy. Then Fukushima, Ms. Benali.
Thank you again, Honorable Delegate Nez. I wanted to thank Vice President Weiser for coming and for expressing appreciation to our community. That means a lot to us. And I also wanted to say that, we appreciate the concerns expressed for the safety of our community, for the safety of the future, our children and whomever is going to develop the lands. That is good. However, we feel that there are two outstanding issues on the whole Navajo Nation, and this is totally different. Alcoholism and no vehicle insurance is required on the Navajo Nation. Somehow, if safety is an issue, then those two items need to be addressed. Because right now, we understand that vehicle insurance is not required on Navajo Nation. And also, alcoholism is rampant with all other kinds of issues. If there is safety for our people, the whole Navajo Nation, then those two items really need to be addressed. And we want to say that we were happy to provide the most reliable source of energy, coal, for our community. And it continues to be most reliable. Yes, there are other sources of alternative energy, and yes, they can be secondary. But right now, our natural resource right now is the most dependable. And our corporate neighbors, the power plants have invested in carbon capture to try to help out. And I always say again, as I said at the EPA hearings in Farmington and other places, that why is the US being blamed for all the pollution when it's China that is just burning the coal unregulated, and then the western wind brings it over here. And then the US environmentalists say, you know, that's bad for us. But, and then, thank you, Mr. Lizer, for saying that the longer we wait, we lose. So right now, there's federal funding for energy transition. So we would like to get involved in that, help develop our community. Yeah, now for the time. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Stewart.
Thank you, Chairman. Auto, colleague of ours, and I can't go to the other auto staff or auto. About this morning, going into the afternoon, Vice President Lizer, thank you for being here as well. Sharing your thoughts and your words as always, Vice President, always good to sit in a meeting with you and hear your thoughts. I appreciate that. You know, there are other areas that need addressing and need this type of meeting format to happen for them. Director Belinda Shirley, you know, that I am familiar with this area. So is Vice President, especially with the Navajo forest product industry that we are dealing with now, the cleanup on that side. But GA is another one, days, going to Conoco from NTEC from other areas. The Hijigo area, we had to have the community members reach out to EPA and bring it to our attention. And, you know, in that way, you know, number of years, 20+ years that we went neglected. You know, no address to it. We have chemicals slowing down the creek, affecting 9 of the communities plus more within District 18. Of course, through the help of the community members, EPA, Ms. Tam Maples, and Daryl Yazi, and also Vice President, and I going there to hear their concerns, trying to cheer them on in a way to make sure that, you know, I guess as stated, you know, the experts are there. And that's what I always say, the experts are there. Whatever they put down, black and white, that's what we're going to run with. And so with that, guidance and vice president to help us along, and then RDC, so, Shania, Kilo, Jaya, Kona, but RDC members, and we do our best to hear all the concerns. It may get repetitive, it may be, going back in circles again, but, we do our best to make sure that everything that we do for all the communities and all the agencies that we cover are gonna be that, so that there's no repeat. And, these meetings here that we have, they're to educate us, educate others, and to refresh our memories on what needs to be done and where we need to go, and to also do check marks on what has been accomplished and what needs to be done again. So I appreciate that. I appreciate the information that was given. And you all know that, you have the support from RDC, Vice President, to push these things through. It does take time, but we will do our best. I think that we will have these areas back to the nation as well. Today with what Shania said, Mr. Halona, Chevron, we have that area too, under 40 clients that we're working with as well. For the community members as well. So these areas are what I'm learning about and getting familiar with the sister community members. So thank you, Shania.
Okay, Tutsala, Koro, Bahainji, Koro, Dina, Kiko, often enter in International, Koro, the Fiction, Kirigi, Padet, PHP Bulletin, out of the larger area, Utah International, on the air, but they have got a Corona, the Auto Kayak, Nail K, so Mr. Halona, Nago, Department of Justice, I don't the Mineral Department, in Navajo EPA, I don't Vice President Weiser, I don't BIA, they don't GIU, ET, then the Kashi, for just a Papan Tito there. Kayaki, Chapanat Neto. There's only Nego, Ego, Kaya, not the Goko. After the reclaim reclamation and need of Kedan, Kaya, not the Goko, Hato, like other Pagishichon, Eden, the overcome, the Gishin, Hansa Gashindo, for Ashi, Kwagishi, David, 40, but all that. The other Bahol G, or Shake is the fair point. Mr. Ernest Diswood.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. I'd like to thank the RDC committee and all the important people. I grew up here in Navajo, right below the boarding school. So I'm familiar with some of the things that I heard on the radio this morning when we were listening in on Facebook. The blasting that went on that shook the houses, the disposal that was going on in ash, all that happened when I was young. My dad was first fatality at Utah International. So, we do have a lot of history here. This land should have been returned back to the chapter a long time ago. Chapters are landlocked as far as Upper Berlin, Nunzon, San Juan. There is no expansion for them unless they can get this land back. The problem is this land will settle. That material was back dumped and was not compacted, so you're going to keep settling. The other issue I have is, as DOJ said, they have a concern about the ash. The mine pits ran north to south. Disposal of ash was in those pits. Not only Watson was there, but those pits were disposed of in there. There's also the problem of mapping and development. Initially, And I say I'm a farmer and I'm a sheep herder and I have a lot of time to think about these things. In reality, I work with Mr. Keith. I went to work at Navajo Mine. He was the one that hired me. I also was the one that worked with another individual, and we got the permanent program permitting done. So I'm familiar with the pre-law, the interim areas. And so I not only had experience, but I have knowledge in all the laws. So to look at this and to think that APS and NTEC want to put and tie the nation's hands, their responsibility is still there. They cannot walk away from this responsibility. Saying that it was pre-law is not going to allow them to just walk away and say it's not our responsibility. We have to live with it as a community. We don't have no economic opportunities without this land. You can't build homes there. It's going to sell. The ash, as they said, was bottom ash, fly ash, sludge. The latter two are the ones that have high heavy metals. We looked at the original water impacting the high wall, going north and south in the final pits. That water, we didn't estimate 150 years, or we estimated 150 years. Well, naturally, we had water showing up there on the high wall. So you're going to have water coming up from these pit areas along the north end of these mines, not from just Watson, but from the ash that was disposed of going further south. That needs to be considered by the Navajo Nation. Whatever is done here, the first priority should be for the protection of the people and the Navajo Nation. From what I've seen and what I'm hearing, NTEC wants to walk away from their responsibility. They bought the mine, they bought the liabilities. That needs to be looked at seriously from our point of view. There are so many problems and issues here economically that doing economic development isn't something that's going to be easily done here in the Nunzak. We did sacrifice for the good of the Navajo Nation. But like everywhere else where there was using resources, oil, gas, that's happening in Eastern Agency. The coal mines on Black Mesa. Is there a study that shows how well the people locally benefited? I don't see it. I've searched high and low. We're doing a lot of research on our own on another issue relating to the net project. This land should have been turned back over to the people a long time ago. It needs to be done, but it also needs to be done to where the local community is not going to be the one left holding the bag. If this ash, water, whatever starts showing up and becomes a problem, I don't want to be sitting here in another 10, 15 years and saying, what are we going to do? We want something concrete and in writing by our government, RDC, DOJ, resources, land. These people are the ones that are responsible for caring and making sure that we're going to be protected into the future. So it's good to see Mr. Keith here, land department, Mr. Halona. We've dealt with him in other areas, other people that I see around here too. So I don't get back here very often. I'm an in-law, and Napa way, you know, I'm the one that brings the rabbit home. So I'm an in-law and what part of Block 10. So I claim to be a sheep herder. I claim to be a farmer, which is true. I grew up doing that. But I'm also concerned about the future for our kids, our community. That is my first priority. What are our kids looking forward to? My kids are off reservation right now, working, because there is no economy here on the Navajo reservation. There is nothing here for them to come back to. We have a tremendous number of issues. I worked with Lucinda and we were part of what they call the 6 CEOs. They were looking at economic development within the 6 chapters here that are impacted by the coal mine. I don't see, where's Mr. Lifer? One of the issues I have is you're having San Juan generating station shutting down. There were millions of dollars that were put aside for the Navajo community to benefit from it. Yet nothing is being done by our leadership. They are supposed to get like 300 megawatts of solar power. Have we even tried to benefit from that? We are losing out. The Nunzat could be putting in solar power out there. They don't have to worry about settling. That's a tremendous income source right there. And there was money that's out there, and yet we're losing out on those types of benefits. So yes, as community members, we need to start thinking outside the box. And it's difficult to think outside the box. And I hate to say it. We're dealing with the issue of development in blocks 10 and 11. And we're the ones doing the research to find documentation on what needs to be done. This is the same issue that you see here. When APS came about, they signed a lease that they would return to land or condition as good or better than what it was. I researched that. I looked at all those agreements. I looked at what APS was paying back to Navajo Mine, BHP, whoever you want, for reclamation costs and environmental compliance costs. How much of those agreements carried over now? So let's go make them live up to what they agreed to in their lease. We don't need to let them walk away from this and say, in 20 years, excuse me, choking on my words here. In 20 years, I want to see an issue come up and everybody's over there saying, oh, no. We're not the ones that are going to pay. We want to see something concrete. We want to see something that protects people. People that have grazing permits. Your fly ash, your sludge are high in heavy metals. Some of these plants will root down 15, 20 feet. what's gonna happen when those plants start up taking that heavy metal and you start seeing that in your animals? They put that on stock case. Think about that. We saw all of this happen when I grew up. I worked aboard the coal mines. Not only Navajo mine, San Juan mine, La Plata mine. I worked in all of those. I'm retired now, so I have plenty of time to look at things and to figure out what needs to be done. And that's my first priority, is working for the people, working for the community. I may be an in-law in another chapter, but I still consider this where I grew up, my home. My responsibility to make sure something good comes out of it. Rashid, thank you.
Thank you, Ernest. Well, Roshi, Nanza chapter president, Nichado, so Rokaya, Kishi, Yayatito, Roshi Bahida, Mr. Norm Begay.
Yate, everyone, thank you for allowing me. I apologize for being late. This is what happens when you have your own business. You gotta be elsewhere. But starting off, Jay Norman Kadiai became my description snow, or they touching buses, she touching the Jado, or she got another and yes, I am an in-law also as well. Unfortunate, my backyard, all the other green area on the opposite side here. As you see, all this area on this side, and way up there, I don't know if you can see it, but that's where I live. Had a drag line right behind, straight up there for 10 years, almost. Woke up to it every night, beep, 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 heard that sound. And getting all that taken out. I worked at APS power plant as well for during the turnarounds. Always was curious where all the ash was. I thought it was going to the ash pond towards the west. Little did I know, we're putting it back in here right in the backyard. And when I found out, when I became chapter president, we've been trying to get this land back all this time, 9 years ago. So I've been asking back then, PHP, how deep this ash is. You know, I've worked with engineers, I've worked with engineering at City Farmington, worked for the engineering service, and afterwards, then I just left and doing this, my business for a while. I still work with engineers and architects now. And I know the soil, and I studied civil. And trying to find this out, how much ash there is. Nobody knew, nobody would give us any information. All these years until just recently that I got a pamphlet from Kratasha. And now I hear that it's only 5 feet of still topsoil. That's not a lot. That's not a lot to work with. You know, water flows different directions underneath. How do I know? I designed a house out in foothills. Sitting on a little hill, and the hill slopes down this way, and the arroyo behind it, probably about 20-foot drop. The owner built a pond or a swimming pool right behind their house. He thought it was safe. The day it was completed, the son had a rebar through there, punctured a hole in it. That water ran underneath the house. Clay underneath. They didn't know, they thought the water would run down, but it went right underneath the house. 7 years later, the owner comes to, I was working for an engineering firm. That project was mine. Didn't know anything about it until the water went down. That's what this guy was gonna do. We do build something on there. It expands and stuff. And then to have grazing, where we live, there's no grazing, there's nothing. There's nothing to graze. Nothing. So my your mother-in-law, my in-laws, my father-in-law, passed 2 years ago, he was telling us we had over 100 sheep at one point there. We used to graze all the way down this way and all that. They ended up selling every one of them before my mother-in-law passed 4 years ago. So there's a couple, our neighbors, my wife's relatives that still live around there. There's 12 units, 12 homes through there. And when we used to live there, I even had that house, I remodeled my old house or my in-laws house, and I could help them build a new home. During that time, everything started cracking. Went to BHP, nothing, didn't do anything about it. I wasn't gonna cry wolf. I just went ahead and built a new home for the older one down. So, with that said, I'm glad that someone finally came up with the kind of area of how much ash is in here. Location. We can't have grazing. There's nothing to graze up there. We hardly get rain. Rain goes around us on both sides. You know, yesterday, all the rain, Farmington, out that way. We didn't have any rain. We probably went around Shiprock around that area. You know, we're like in a little circle around the power plant, being that there's smoke back on both sides of it. We never get rain. So it's not really gonna get vegetation back. That's how I feel about it. So when we start talking about all this land being back, we go back to the chapter. Sometime, one day in our dream, that we'll put something on there. And then we all discuss, well, what about a solar farm? You know, a lot of people say, what are you gonna develop through there? Well, we don't know. So, soil and all that, isn't there? Yeah, it'd be nice to put a building, you know, residential home through there. You know, past south of all that ash. I think the last meeting we had someone say we should take all that ash back out. I don't know how long that would take to do that. But in this critical area right in here, this area right in here, where the old coal dump used to be. The coal dump used to be right here, and then all this area, we're trying to take 5 acres out, put this, the tribe, the nation wants us to be chances that have a cemetery, community cemetery. That's what we're thinking of. So, guess what? We dig 5 feet, and we find ash. So what do we tell the community? You can put your loved one there. So now we have to look around and see where we're gonna have all our burial sites gonna be at. That's the only location that we have thought of, because there's already 2 burials there. So it is going to be a tough situation here. I wish I was sitting back here with, my CSC, that the two DOJs are online. I wish they were here in person. You know, doesn't take that long for us to drive out this way and actually see. I don't know if they really actually been out in person through this area. When it was all rehabilitated, we went out there, drove out there. I've been in this site. So there's a fence that's open on top of the hill there. I've driven my ATV through there, drove around, did all my investigation all the way through in there. And, you know, there's vegetation growing, but how long will that last? You know, so that's kind of how I feel about this here, you know. Hopefully, you know, we have a better idea of what all the asks are. And, you know, we all need to work together to see how we can resolve all this issue that we're having. But the main thing is our community wants this land back. And at one point, our former council delegate had mentioned to us that if you turn it back into grazing, it's going to take a long time to turn it back to whatever you guys want to do. And that's what we're trying to avoid. We want to turn it back into grazing. You know. That's kind of what we're trying to avoid. So whatever we're gonna be picking up, putting in there. I hope it happens. I just really hope it happens in the next 5-10 years. So that's all I got to say. Yeah, actually, thank you.
Thank you. Everybody that's here today. As leaders, the Lebanon, I know. You go through a lot. Sometimes it's very difficult to say something back. You don't want to use harsh words to talk to anyone. I read the Bible a lot, and I think about what it says, like a soft answer turneth away wrath, Nila. That's one. And another one is be quick to hear and slow to speak, Nila. The next education order, you need it again. As you need it again, Nego and Nea. As you send case on the Tahadis. Hello, that's a high ego. So there's an Beha. So there's then at Nego. At so the yin Nego and Nela. A connection. So there's an echo. You just speak to that. I just want to say thank you, Intel. I know it's not your fault that this ash was disposed of the way it was disposed of. But the people here are asking for the land back. We need the help of the Department of Justice, Land Department, Division of Natural Resources, Mineral Department, Navajo EPA, the President's Office, BIA. DC order, what we have today, this is like our second meeting to bring everybody together. Hey, oh, AAD, then Nahatagi Hasheto, Ni Kaya, Christian Ninanza, Fundo, Ni Egasa, Napiat Siki in Hasheto Ninchi. It will get done at some point. Things take time, they take time, they take time, and everybody gets frustrated. Oh, congrats, Winter Rock just sitting over there. It's all Winter Rock's fault. It's everybody's fault. The other day, I was at a meeting and a person was sitting right in front of us. She could offer her seat. So they be the hang no, could offer. What I'm not saying it all, the best ones, I'm not saying it. You're here cheating on, and I'm sitting there thinking. Previous councils, things that had happened back then, discretionary funds. I should have hoped that this thing, when you become a new delegate, they're still going to be blamed for what happened 20 years ago. I hope that. So sometimes you have to just, as a leader, come out and tell them and explain and instruct carefully. And then that needs either. So my colleagues won't allow me to steal money from the Navajo Nation. They have authority to stop me. But all the monies that are requested is requested by legislation. It is debated on the council floor. So there's no way to steal money to put in my pocket. They'll be like that. When BHP was here, they did a lot of financial assistance to the local communities. Up in Fruitland, Nahamsa, San Juan, and I believe from P&M, they give scholarship monies to their chapters. APS helps when you ask them for help. Intech has been doing the same thing. Although they have been helping these communities. Not only here, across the great Navajo Nation. They pay for these trucks to haul coal. 110 chapters across the nation, they pay for it. Chapters don't need to pay for it. So our grandmas and grandpas living out there can stay warm in the winter. Yeah, and thank you very much for that. We hope to continue that relationship with the local chapters. Not only that, community benefits fund for the now other chapters are able to apply for these. So they can have some sort of renovation to certain parts of their buildings or provide funding on something that they would like to have improved in their community. One time we had a lot of rain in San Juan chapter area. Just right there. The hail came down, damaged plants. And this rain probably lasted about 45 minutes. Maybe between 30 and 45 minutes. It rained so hard that it created washes like about maybe 3 feet. I mean, there was water everywhere and it's almost school at the end of the day for buses that come home. And buses couldn't even go that way. We started San Juan chapter official says, since we're an LGA certified chapter, let's just declare an emergency, call the county, call APS, call Navajo Mine. Bill Skeet right here, I remember him. He was wearing this red vest with 2 flags, walking. And this grader from Navajo Mine was following him. The county came in with some equipment, they fixed it. In fact, to mitigate some of these roads. This is the type of relationship these three chapters have with Navajo Mind, APS, PNM. It's all because of respect. Leaders respect these industries because our people work at these industries across the river. On. But we see that power plants and mines are being shut down throughout the nation. But I was reading an article the other day, Germany is bringing back their coal. When Texas had a frost here a couple of years ago, Intech was hauling coal down there to those people because their wind turbines and their solar panels have frozen up. This is real. This actually happened. They had no way to create energy, so they decided to go back to the coal. Electricity, the Nevada, so with the on Honorable Stewart, as well as Honorable Kiel and the Gay, online. Thank you, Honorable Vice Chair Walker, Honorable Daniels, as well as Honorable Freeland for listening to our discussion today in the Navajo chapter. At this time, I'm going to give the floor over to Honorable Kiel and the Gay Jr.
The only recommendation to Kodo local officials is maybe Larry's brother, make sure he gets back on the council. That's one way to get things continue to grow. The other area, Kodo officials is maybe other Kodo Shaya to be not the whole team. So I know the chapter official, I know the CSC has other areas to deal with on a daily basis. So we know that, and I know that. You talk about water lines, you talk about power lines, you talk about roads, you talk about everything else. For a recommendation of the task force in the need for that. So they go on there, it's not a that in the which activate our don't need those and then in the Cotonia or Z, the ash community. Take all the AD education, then the Joe, the Cato, and that, the Kai and the Edwin Kohalanza, take those so here. A cocoa to a up at city, could go on Kahito, either car administrator. A quack if it is been on the show. She does up on the show. Now, she has a thought. Oh, the other one, Mickey A. Critique, say down, could go before impact, other than that in Shanghai. The job is just under nothing. I out the sheet of you can't go to the board outside. Day after, I think that's where the task force should come into play. A job is the job for a other ED that go after our continent, then the higher yet after that is a shift. A cocoa peak at the done object not your object not your the 8 hour capital G. They have seen that the Nana at the other than not who G should not see the 8 hours. A quarter cake could do peak reclamation, I believe, project in China. Maybe the vice president also that make a recommendation to the council. So hey, he did the obvious, but that the recommendation make sure he does the job and the job and that so after no matter what, if they choose to give it to somebody else, they still have a tie and they still have the responsibility in it, the duration of the land, or duration of the situation in this area. I would able to be his army, Adia, she look at all, she audit, audit, in the land department. So these are some areas, again, it's just a recommendation, Chairman Jones, earlier, about Siki, on keep quadruped, on in the could take a reclamation process, but I don't think we're going to go back into any type of a new mining process on the day. But should that be my question, my recommendation is that think of reclamation. That okay, George, that was to be his army, he fishing of the Hatahushi, Hatapi, Pipita, that's from the possession Kodok, out of it, Nito, Aden, which a queen. To have many Tato, with other amendments on this. Out of the king has so indeed, hard to shoot. Pick out the king, hard to see up a car. At the car, father has a song to hit all the under the eight of the car, and then issue in Dania, so issue in my nation, and at the other. Joe that eight a she pretty much took to eight a she to eight other that I'm sure that would pass what could come into play locally to really engage in getting a lot of these information in Habana, such case, not to say that officials were thinking enough of the castle to the sheet and the all I'm saying is that ADE or such a game like the Shashin, Bohmet Zanta, similar in Habana, such case, just as easy. Don't think of that and one day you have your own farm board members, and then you have your own irrigation office, and then your own different areas. I think the irrigation done just every single day. So yeah, sometimes they may look like that. You just got too many red tape or too many authorities given to certain group or individuals. But to quickly, by not to those task force that we may give machines that 3 quarters, every quarter that quite get chapter to show those chapter community, you should not have after you provide feedback. Update to the community, but no, they own the show. But the next option. So that again, that's just a recommendation, Chairman, for me to the community and the local chapter officials and Vinigito, of course, Joachim, Kato, Hitachi, Papan, Shina, of course, Ishigaya, Shishito, just the class of the family, Kato. Together, Miss Tato, sit on Papaya, get Army, live with you guys, local community members, that was the paper on that you have it tagging of the store, the baseball. I mean, then you keep it, that's the his army that a in hiding on, which is stop art. According to the book, Archie, that happens, and the army go. How long it takes them to settle? The vivification go quite the eight that Nahato Hiki in the meat, the army of the fun, the dog, the daughter, that he that the dog is other set. A baby, not no with the sheep, with other baby, out of the sheep that is seen on. But again, I mean, just saying that this is just a recommendation. Part of the basic of credit. RDC members in Genegi, to 8 on kick, Kodo, other 8 on, okay, check of no, Kodo, last day on Genegi public acquisition. So, not to say anything about Intact or any previous operators in this area, but a lot of times we just want to say that there should be and needs to be some responsibilities need to be put in place in all these agreements that's in place. Just for example, uranium. But I put that into Washington, then get opportunity of speaking at these changes, and we still have over 500 uranium open sites across the Navajo Nation. I mean, they're still looking for people who are responsible more than half of it, they identified, but more than half, about 200 more sites, it's still working told, so because in my area, I've got several of them in my chapters are being told that, we're trying to look for the owners, and we're trying to find the, who's responsible, basic stuff then, you hear about billions and billions of dollars being settled, but those are the areas that have been identified, but those that have been not been identified, we're just being told that, well, once we get the funding, we'll try to remediate that. Different, no, different emissions, then you buy that, it's difficult. So that's the same situation with the chaos. Then you could go, just the whole scheme. They nada before. So I think I should just he caught that is for those scholarship that really that she was able to do it. He can't that is just new by yet to so far. She made that after 85. She made really that she got the basic car over the car. The big company short more than she just don't act up on that. She didn't give. This is in general a recommendation. It's on the house conduct of that. It's the judge that you get on me. The stand up at the finance, it's a very lot of these are based on some other thing. I've been out in the data, and that's a turn to put it at the social media. Chinaya had to eat up. I think so. We need to get the job. I'm not don't have to go back to Japan and see that. But sometimes for me, I always say that it doesn't lie with the community, with the chapter, with the resolution. If it is not the community, to be that also quite good. It may be the vision and the vision idea. If it is not to go, should rather go to the baseball and then the vision AUB. Now for Corona and the ESN. Whatever, Chairman did ask him to go some input comments about this particular issue. So, the other than not with the sheet able to do also.
Thank you, Honorable Brigade. Yeah, I'm sure the Dog chapter appreciates your support and helping to resolve. Joy the chief or Kitia. Joy the chief or Kitia. The clock is ticking towards a solution to get it done. I always say, when people tell us, oh, create a Wonder Rock. You guys are no good in Wonder Rock. No, I always tell people, something is getting done somewhere on the Navajo Nation. This is going to be my 4th year on council. I've seen bridges, roads, people get electricity, people get water. I saw these improvements on the Navajo Nation. I'm sure our vice president here is willing to say, yes, I saw that too. But you know, because we see these improvements somewhere. With this, we can resolve at some point. But it's going to have to take another follow-up meeting. I don't know how many more, but we need to have an in-person meeting. They could all should President Norm Begay and then the Otto Kuroki Allen. Ms. Quinn, appreciate you being on the call with us today. But what we would like to do also, not only the Department of Justice, but Division of Natural Resources, Land Department, Mr. Halona, Ms. Jeremiah from Minerals Department, Ms. Shirley from Navajo Nation EPA, and the President's Office, Vice President Liger, as well as Mr. Mahoja, your office from BIA. What we need to do is have an in-person meeting here. We can sit here and have a roundtable discussion and talk about how we can resolve this issue. Everyone that I just named from these divisions, departments, when we meet the next time, I want you to come to the table and offer a solution that we might come to have a resolution. Oportego en Hatsago Biga. Actually, let them do it over there. Land department can handle it. We can't say that, oh, what about BIA? We'll just throw it in their backyard, see what they think about it. We can't do that either. Oh, maybe the president will take care of it. No, we can't do that. Everybody has to be here. There has to be a commitment that day and say, yes, I'll be there. I'll bring a solution that I'm gonna offer and make sure the Navajo chapter officials are here to listen and provide some recommendations as well. The clock is ticking towards that. Somewhere it'll get done. That would be our recommendation. The next step, so Mr. Tahi, the advisor, we would like to have a follow-up meeting and make sure that perhaps all of RDC will be here at the time. Hopefully things will slow down for them and we can have this discussion and listen and see what we can do moving forward, as well as from Speaker's office, Mr. Yates. Perhaps if Speaker himself or the Chief of Staff can be here with you also, that would mean a lot. So I just said what I said to all the divisions, departments, and we will have a follow-up. You will receive an email and give us the dates, and we'll add it to RDC agenda and make sure we have that follow-up meeting at that time.
Chair, members of the committee, you have Eugenia Quintana who raised her hand, who wants to speak.
Okay, Ms. Quintana, you have the floor.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the Resources Committee. I just wanted to offer some comments, and I just wanted to talk a little bit about the core concern on the part of Navajo EPA. And I wanted to also reiterate that we are not against the relinquishment, but we do have what we feel is a significant core concern, and that is about the Navajo Nation's future liability for the coal ash, and that the US EPA could finalize a rule that determines that the Navajo Nation will be liable for the coal ash. I know I've heard, like many of the rest of you, a lot of previous documents and discussions that are in place regarding how coal ash is to be addressed. We've seen waste disposal agreements, we've seen pre-law documents, we've seen resolutions, supplements, amendments, restatements, decisions, etc. However, in 2016, Congress passed the Water Infrastructure Improvements for the Nation Act. Many of us know that as the WIN Act. And this added a new subsection to the Resources Conservation and Recovery Act. That's RCRA. And what this proposal from 2016 did, it required EPA to develop a permitting program for CCR coal combustion residual units located in Indian country. And it also required that EPA should propose a permitting program for CCR units located in Indian country. So this is kind of like the situation that, kind of like pushed our core concern a little further. This proposed rule that EPA proposed, it hasn't been finalized yet. So this is still hanging out there. This issue is still hanging out there. And we don't know how EPA is going to rule on this. One of the things that gives us some heartburn is that EPA could say that tribes are considered landowners. They could tell us that the Navajo Nation is a landowner and owns this these two facilities on the Navajo Nation. That would be Four Corners Power Plant and Navajo Generating Station, because both these facilities are involved in developing using coal ash disposal facilities. So one of the other things that gives us heartburn is that under RCRA, tribes cannot seek treatment as a state. So we don't have the ability to develop our own permitting program for CCR units. The federal government will come into the picture and they will have to develop a permitting program for us. And along those same lines, they could determine that under RCRA standards, the Navajo Nation is considered the landowner and therefore liable for the coal ash. These are the types of concerns. There are many other components that become involved in this, but this is our main core concern, and that is the Navajo Nation's future liability for coal ash, and that the EPA could finalize this rule that determines that the Navajo Nation is liable for the coal ash. And that concludes my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Quintana. I believe that when we do have a follow-up meeting, it would be best to all have a roundtable discussion. Sometimes being online, the technology here is distorted. You have to really concentrate to understand what a person is saying on the teleconference. So I think moving forward, we will have a follow-up meeting here in Nahizad. Ako, Eshi, Opotsa, Bahadon Jish, Ado, Ndeta, Ponchian, Intact, Hane, Sneak, Ado, Ndeta. While we're eating here, also, we'll have a short 10-minute video presentation on helium by Intech by Vivi. So, Roshi, just so, but before we do, I'd like to give some time to Dragon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the finishing comments. One thing that I would like to do is to echo NTEC's perspective on the land and returning the land to the owners, to the chapter, to people who it belongs to. NTEC is providing the information, looking for objective facts, looking for the signs, supporting the signs, making sure that we as NTEC are good neighbors. We want to be part of this community, be part of the Navajo Nation, and make sure that we all work together to do the right thing. And one of those right things that we are trying to be part of as a partner is to return the land and contribute no different than anybody else in the community. So if there's anything else that NTEC could provide that can be part of this partnership, we would be more than willing, and I would love to be part of that process and come to the conclusion hopefully sometime soon. So thank you again for the opportunity to be here, to show more information and be part of the process.
Thank you. Ashe, we'll have a short prayer, and I'll have Vice President Lizer bless the food. And after we get our food and sit down, we'll have Vivi do the 10-minute video presentation.
Yeah. We could all bow our heads. Heavenly Father, God, we give you all praise, all honor, and all glory. Thank you for this time that we're able to meet grant us your wisdom, which is the principal thing, Lord, for us to decide rightly and judge rightly for our people, Lord. May the people of the land be blessed by our leadership here as we ascribe ourselves to you and your leadership. Yes, that being God. Now we ask you to bless this food that we're about to partake as we break bread. Bless it for our bodies that we can be healed, that be healing for our bones, and cleanse it for our bodies that we can bring you glory in everything we do. In Jesus' name we pray. Yes, that being God. Amen.
Thank you, Vice President Weiser. Certainly appreciate your presence here today. Gee, go ahead and start. Ashe, Hachiyan Hanahas Negi, a call that was some, and I'm a kid of there. Okay, Vice President, you need to what, please? We're gonna take a few minutes break here and we're gonna show the video. Will the video be on?
No, it's right there on the.
Chairman, this is Daniel.
Honorable Daniels?
I have a question, Mr. Chair. Call it daily. I say it's
I'm sorry, you can't have some lunch here. You're just gonna have to drool over the teleconference. Isn't that,
Mr. Chair, no. Today.
That's it.
and in the video, kind of just give some of the most commonly asked questions, try to answer it through the video to help understand what helium is and how it's extracted. So the concept behind this came from, we created some safety videos using coyotes because, so we're trying to blend our culture, safety culture and animal culture together. And so we use coyote in there since we kind of help one of our main characters to tell stories. So we show those videos to our employees at Navajo Mine, and we say, look, use this one also to help tell the story of what helium is and how it's extracted. So it's a 10-minute video, so it doesn't answer all the questions, but I think it answers some of the bigger questions that are asked. You guys recognize James who was on there? That voice sound familiar? So he came out and he did the voice of Coyote for us. So we're thankful. Yeah, definitely. So that we thought that would be a good way to kind of get the message out and give a better understanding of what it is and what we do. Yeah, so I appreciate your attention and time to take a look at this video.
You may have to rewind it. Honorable T. Allen Brigade, that's part of that coyote at the very beginning. It was good. The voice, Mikey, was by James Jones, by the Connie. Hello, and section cheesy, but all that and should be a doing what any of the page. But all the net from the helium or the heavy, which is slow. I'm not sure if it's the Hadid, Dehiki, Fatal, so bad, Polona. She don't introduce, then it gets hot away, the leg of the boat, either helium. And I don't talk about companies. They said, now, there's already 3 companies that are extracting helium. A on $1,000. But right now, even not the nation and I don't have it on the short. So thank you, Vivi, for the presentation video. And Natasha, I can have for coordinating all this as well. Although Roshan, that's about the point. I don't get it. Then, yeah, but Sheila, so you have on. So thank you all for coming today. Your participation, your input is very valuable. At some point, we're going to have to make that decision. As we are all aware, it does take time. Even but I was on that the Department of Justice, as well as Land Department, Division of Natural Resources, and the Minerals Department and EPA, the President's Office, Honorable Vice President Weiser, thank you for coming. BIA, Resource and Development Committee, the House, Washington, Mahasala, other partners, Nelna, Senegay, Ninahanzato, Hashtehodo, Nati, Kaya, Hakin, Hitchin, Hondo, Nati, Egg, Nikanana Shidi, Nato, Hajo, Spirit 18, Benahi Taro, the Peniga. So, I can so, just one of one again. Actually, you have what Chukundo makes the recommendations are for a follow-up meeting and in-person follow-up meeting with all the divisions and departments that we had just mentioned today. We're pretty much at the conclusion of our meeting. Thank you, Nanza chapter, Mr. Bavaro. But on behind, those chapter officials. Thank you very much. At this time, we'll go ahead and adjourn our meeting. It is now 12:34 p.m. Thank you. Be safe. And have a good Labor Day weekend, right? There you go. That's what Sheila. That's all there.